Hey everybody, it's Jennifer J. Welcome back to Moving Forward. I'm so glad you joined us again, or joined me again, and whoever else is watching. Today we are going to be talking out of Mark chapter 10, verses 46 through 52. So if you want to get your Bibles ready, we are going to read that today, but I know you like to have a pen and paper ready to take notes and prayer requests and whatever else. So I don't know how many of you are doing the challenge. There was a prayer challenge and there was also the spiritual fruits challenge. So a couple of different ones kind of going on. And I know I've heard from a few people that you're doing one or the other, but I didn't know if there were others of you that might be doing those. So if you type it on the line, make a comment, let me know if you're participating in one or both of those. I'd love to hear how it's going for you. I did just hear from someone today. They direct messaged me and let me know that they had done one of the exercises and it went really, really well for them and it meant a lot to them. So I hope that you're trying those things out, try some new things, see how God speaks to you. I just think it's great to use all different forms of methods till you find something that really works for you. So anyway, that's my little commercial on that. And then I'm going to go ahead and read for you Mark 10:46 through 52. So it's just 46 through the end of the chapter. And I forget, sometimes you don't know, some people are watching that aren't familiar with their Bible, but Mark is in the New Testament. So this is Old Testament and this is New Testament. But if you split your Bible in half, right in half, you should be in Psalm. And then if you split it in half again, you should be in John. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, John is where you would end up if you were about halfway. So you're going to turn back just a couple of pages to get to Mark. So it's not too far, but that should help you find it if you are trying to get to Mark. And then 10:46 through 52, it says, "Now they came to Jericho." Jericho's a little town about 15 miles, I think north. I might be wrong, don't quote me on that, but I think it's north of Jerusalem. At any rate, now they came to Jericho. As he went out of Jericho with the disciples and a great multitude, blind Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, sat by the road begging. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." Then many warned him to be quiet, but he cried out all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." So Jesus stood still and commanded him to be called. Then they called the blind man, saying to him, "Be of good cheer, rise, he is calling you." And throwing aside his garment, he rose and came to Jesus. So Jesus answered and said to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man said to him, "Rabboni, that I may receive my sight." Then Jesus said to him, "Go your way, your faith has made you well." And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus on the road. So there's a few things I want to pull out of this for you. I didn't write down very many notes, but I have a lot to say. I know that probably doesn't surprise you. So I told you Jericho's just about 15 miles from Jerusalem. And granted, we think of 15 miles today. That doesn't seem very far at all because we travel by car, right? But they were walking. So imagine how long it would take you to walk 15 miles from Jerusalem. And they were on their way to Jericho. So in two of the Gospels, I think it's Matthew and Mark, this one's Mark, but in Matthew and Mark it says, as they were going. And in Luke, it says, as he entered the city. So the difference could be, as they all three of those Gospels tell this story, the difference could be that as they were entering the city, as you know, they weren't there yet, they were getting there or almost there as they were on their way, but the point was they weren't there yet. They weren't in the city yet, but it was as they were going. So that's an important thing to remember. As they were going. And then who was Jesus with? He was with his disciples and a great multitude. So he had his inner circle around him, right? I kind of picture Jesus with like security, right? He's got his 12 disciples with him and then a great multitude. So a lot of people following. We're not talking 10 or 20 people. It says a great multitude. So I'm picturing at least hundreds of people following him. And so you know what it's like when you're in a room full of people And let's say you're in church and you're waiting for church to start and people start to talk, right? Or if you're in a meeting at work and before the meeting starts, people start to talk. And what happens? You start out talking really quietly with your neighbor, and then as the noise level rises, because everybody's talking quietly, you have to talk a little louder because they can't hear you. And everybody does that because it's happening to everybody else in the room too. And pretty soon the room's pretty loud, right? If you ever worked in a school, you will know this is true in the lunchroom. The kids start out really quiet, but boy, they get really loud really fast. And I can imagine this is what's happening. If there's a great multitude of people following Jesus, they're all talking, plus they're walking and they're making noise as they go, and they're talking with each other. So there's got to be a loud hum at least, right? And then there's blind Bartimaeus. Now, whenever you hear Bar just means son of. So when you hear Bartimaeus, Bar, he's the son of Timaeus. So right behind it, where it says blind Bartimaeus, it says, comma, the son of Timaeus, because literally that's how it's translated. But he sat by the road begging. So why was he begging? He was begging because he was blind and he could not work. And so that is what blind people did in those days. They would just hope for the kindness of others to make some money to eat food. So he was begging, but when he heard that it was Jesus that came, he must have heard about Jesus, because he started crying out all the more, all the louder. He wasn't just saying, hey, would you put some change in my little silver cup here? He's crying out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And he had to be saying it pretty loud if there was a great multitude of people, which is what it says there was. So then it says, many warned him to be quiet. So this wasn't a couple of people said, shh, stop, don't do that. It says many people told him to be quiet. And I can imagine they probably scolded him or weren't kind to him as they were telling him to be quiet. But that just made him cry out louder. He was like, I'm not having it. I am not having it, y'all. You can tell me to be quiet all day long. I'm just going to say it louder. So he said, Son of David, have mercy on me. And so Jesus stood still and commanded him to be called. Why do you think that Jesus did that? I think that whenever God does anything, he has lots and lots of reasons. And I don't think it's ever just for one particular thing, because there's always so many different ripples. Even with my story and all that's happened, there's just been so many, many different levels of awesomeness that he has shown me. So I think that partly he's going to answer this man's prayer, but partly I think he wanted to show the people around him who were not being kind. I think he was reprimanding them. No, tell him to come here. You all are wrong for the way you're treating him. I'll see him. And letting him know that he wasn't worthless and he wasn't without merit. He was human just like they were. He was a person. He just couldn't see. In society, he was low level. But Jesus was letting them know he's important to me. And he needs to be important to you guys. I think that's part of what he was saying there. So he said, tell him to be called. So they called him, and they said, be of good cheer, rise, he's calling you. And throwing aside his garment, he rose and came to Jesus. He moved immediately. Jesus called him to come, and what did he do? Throw off that blanket and went. He's like, you're calling me? Here I come. He was obedient. He came. And so Jesus answered and said, what do you want me to do for you? Now, do you think Jesus didn't know what he wanted him to do? I think Jesus knew exactly what he wanted him to do, but he wanted to hear him say it. And so he said, Rabboni. Now, Rabboni, if I'm even saying that correctly, is a more intense form of rabbi. So rabbi means teacher or respected teacher. That's what they called John the Baptist, I believe, rabbi. But Rabboni is like you're even above the rabbi, like you're even more important, more holy, deserve more reverence than a rabbi. So he's recognizing his authority, and he said that I may receive my sight. And Jesus said, go your way, your faith has made you well. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus on the road. So two things happened there. He was made whole, not just in eyesight, but in heart sight, because he could see that he was the Son of God. He knew he was made completely whole. Jesus doesn't heal someone and leave them partially whole. So he had the spiritual understanding and could see spiritually, but he also received his physical eyesight immediately. But then what did he do after he received his sight? He followed Jesus. He followed him. So I think a lot of times we pray for things, and we might even get the answer to our prayers, but we don't always continue to follow. We might not admit that. We might say we're following, but think about times that you have fallen away. Like I think I told you guys recently that I wasn't listening to as many sermons. I wasn't as into the Word as I had been. And I think we do that. We fall away a little bit. Things get going a certain way, and you're comfortable or whatever. You get busy. I was moving and all that stuff, but we let time get away, and we aren't as close to him as we once were. And I think that this is a good reminder that immediately when he received his sight, he followed Jesus, and we need to follow him. Not just say that we follow him, but we need to really follow him. And the only way we can really follow him is if we're really in his word, really in prayer, really recognizing our blessings, really worshiping him, really, doing all the things. I say go to church. Not everybody agrees with that, but I believe the Bible does say, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together, because it's good. You need to meet with like-minded people. Doesn't have to be in a traditional church setting. You could have a home church or any number of other things. You could have a life group that you meet with at a coffee shop. But you need to be meeting together with other Christians and growing in your walk and being in the Word together and doing life together. And that's really, really important, that you're meeting together on a regular basis with other Christians. So when I say church, don't get me wrong there, because I do go to church, and I love going to church, and I would recommend it to anybody. But that's not the end-all be-all. So it just says, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together in the Lord, for this is good. So it's important to do it. It doesn't have to look the same way that I do it. Okay, so I wanted you to know that he heard. So the blind Bartimaeus heard that it was Jesus, right? So people have to hear, you have to share, you have to tell your story. And immediately he threw off his garment. It doesn't use the word immediately, but it says he threw off his garment and went, indicating it was immediate. But when Jesus healed him, that was immediate. And it says that. So how bad do you want it? How bad do you want what it is you want? My note I wrote, you can't let your objection make you lose sight of your objective. So blind Bartimaeus' objective was to get healed, right? The crowd's objection was, be quiet, don't bother him. If he had had that same objection, oh, I'm not worthy and I'll just be bothering him, what would have happened? He wouldn't have got healed. He'd still be blind. Well, he's dead now, but during this time, he would still be blind. So he couldn't give in to their peer pressure and their objection. He couldn't make that his objection. He had to stay focused and keep his eye on the prize and say, no, I want Jesus. And so what is it that you are going after? And you can't let your objection make you lose sight of your objective. So, in what I'm doing here in Arizona, it gets... The devil is a liar, so I know that. But it gets discouraging sometimes, as I'm trying to do support raising, partnership development right now. And sometimes I'll go a day, 2 days, 3 days, a week without anybody saying yes, that they want to join me and join God in his work here. And that can be discouraging, but I know that God has it, and I know that he's called me here with everything that's in me. I know that I'm doing what he said, so it's not up to me what his timing is. It's not up to me who he's called to join me in the work. And I say join me, but it's joining God in the work that he's doing here. So I can't let my objection of, I'm just not good at this, I'm just, not doing it right, or whatever Satan wants to lie to me about. I can't let my objections make me lose sight of the objective. The objective is to do it. The objective is to build the partner base. So that's what God's called me to do, and that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it till the day I die, if that's how long it takes. So that's just an example. I don't know what you guys are going through or what you're trying to do, and what you might feel discouraged about or not, or maybe someone's asked you, maybe the pastor or one of the ministry leaders at church have asked you to do something, and maybe you don't feel qualified, or maybe there's somebody that you feel like you should witness to and you don't feel capable, of witnessing, or whatever it is. Pray about it, because don't let your objection win. Because if the objection wins, you don't get the healing, right? You don't get to receive your sight. So this week I would just challenge you to pray about those objections and write them down if you need to. Write down what it is you think God's called you to do, or the thing that you're struggling with, and write down what your objections are. Why haven't you done it? Why have you made excuses, which are self-imposed limitations? And really take some time to dwell on that and meditate on it and let God talk to you about it, and see how he can take what your objections are and turn them into unobjections. I don't know what the word to use is, but turn it into something that he can bless, because he certainly can, and he certainly wants to, or he wouldn't have brought it to your plate. So that is all I have for today. I hope that you enjoyed your time with me, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.